Hey again, everyone. Hope you're having a super amazing day, night, or whatever it is. I have been a bit AWOL the last couple of weeks. I dropped that AI episode, and ironically, since then, I've been neck deep in AI. There's been a lot of new stuff coming out with AI agents that's been very exciting, and I've been really getting into the Claude Code stuff with AI agents. If you don't know much about that, then, well, you're probably going to hear about it very soon, I'm sure. But yeah, there's been a very rapid development in the AI space since my last episode, which is funny timing. It's, nothing like truly groundbreaking, but it's really just making things a lot easier for me as a business owner and a lot of other people out there in certain types of businesses. It's really just accelerating the timeline for us to get to where we want to be, which I think I kind of talked about in the last episode. And yeah, the AI agents have really picked up steam in the last couple of weeks and some very cool stuff going on there. I've actually rebuilt our entire website and enhanced cleaning all from vibe coding. So I've vibe coded a website from scratch with no reference guide or anything, just from the ground up, from a piece of paper essentially. And basically what vibe coding means, if you don't know, it's like coding without actually coding. I'm just kind of telling AI what my vision is and like giving it ideas and prompting it and asking it to ask me questions based on what the vision is. And then it's like carrying out and executing on those tasks. And then, yeah, I've redesigned my whole website. It is incredible. It's got like a whole bunch of new features that I've always wanted in a website, but I'm not a developer, so I could never make that for myself. And I wasn't going to go and spend like $10,000 to get a basic plugin made. So now I've got this awesome website. It took me like 2 days to make. And I've also created an entire like management system, pretty much a software for our own business, which is just insane. Like, again, I would have had to pay someone, $50,000 to $100,000 to do what I've done in the last couple of days. And that's no exaggeration, by the way. Like, if you've been keeping up with my Instagram stories lately, I have been showcasing what I've made with Claude Code. And it's like this all-in-one management system. It's got we've got this management backend in our Notion. So we have like all of our SOPs, frameworks, spreadsheets kind of tied up in there. And then there's like other platforms we use like Go High Level and Typeform. And we just use different features from all these different softwares, and that kind of houses all of our apps and integrations and systems, frameworks, all that stuff. I've pretty much condensed all of that down into one software, into one website that we can use for the company. And now it's not fully fleshed out yet. There's still lots of other features that I'm adding, but we've pretty much got it up and running. And now the management team is using it. Our VAs are using it. I've started to train our management on it, the upper management people. And yeah, it's absolutely insane what I've been able to do with this stuff. But yeah, that's what I tried to kind of touch on in the last episode. It's like AI is just going to dramatically increase and accelerate the timeline for success for us. Like, if we have a desired result and there is like a technological hurdle or gap that needs to be bridged, AI can get you there quicker than anything or anyone. And the people that don't come around to the fact, the people that don't adopt AI and harness the power of it, they're the ones that are going to get left behind. Think about all the businesses that are, they've been around for a long time, since before the dawn of the internet. They wouldn't have had websites. They wouldn't have had, yellow pages. They wouldn't have had all this stuff. And then one day the internet rolls around and, the people that get on the internet first, the ones that are the early adopters, they're the ones that ultimately, succeeded in the long run. They got a massive boost from being early adopters and getting in at that early adoption stage. And a lot of the other businesses either fizzled out or they just kind of plateaued and, they maintained and struggled to get by up until now, or if they ever even made it to the present day. But there's kind of like all these inflection points throughout history, especially since the dawn of the internet, like, Google Ads getting introduced for the first time, the early adopters there capitalized, made a lot of money, and then all of a sudden we got to that inflection point where everyone kind of caught on and Google Ads became mainstream, and then it became competitive and harder to really make it work without skill and knowledge and know-how. So same sort of thing is happening with AI. Like, we're at that early adoption stage where all the people that get in now are going to be massively rewarded for it. And we're going to get to that inflection stage sooner or later where it's just kind of the norm. And if you're not doing it at all, then you're just out of the game entirely. But if you are doing it, it's kind of like a level playing field where most people are kind of on the ball by then. So hopefully I've, over this episode and the last one, I've got you thinking about how you can start to learn about this stuff and get involved with it, because it really is amazing stuff what it can do for us. And especially for a lean business like ours, like we try to keep things really lean. We don't want to have a massive management team. Obviously we need a big cleaning staff, and as I said, robots aren't replacing people on the ground anytime soon with cleaning. But our office staff and like our operations, it's just going to make things so much easier. Like we can now use AI agents to basically be assistants to our management team. Like I have an AI agent assistant, Stacey's going to have one, our VA's got one now that she can use as well, and it's just making so many processes and so many things that used to be completely done by humans. It's now automated so that our management team can focus on what really matters and what's really going to drive growth and pull the really important levers. And AI can do all of the really menial, like repetitive tasks, and actually a lot of higher level tasks as well. And, we can kind of bounce ideas off it and brainstorm with it. And yeah, just so much cool stuff. So that's kind of where I've been the last couple of weeks. I've just been neck deep in Claude Code and all these different AI agents, and yeah, just trying to learn as much as I can, because it's really got me fascinated. And I truly think that this is like the new age gold rush. There's going to be a lot of people that make a lot of money off this in any kind of industry, not just cleaning, but particularly in the cleaning industry. Like we have a really good opportunity now to kind of harness the power of this, especially with it being in such an early stage of development. And we are nowhere close to hitting that inflection point where the general population is catching onto it and using it. Like, ChatGPT is one thing. 500 million people a week use ChatGPT, which is a mind-boggling statistic, but it's like the bottom of the AI pyramid. You go up a few levels and you get to AI agents, which is like the newer kind of frontier of AI, and barely anyone's using it. I think I looked at a graph and like less than 0.1% of the population is actually using this higher level AI agent stuff at the time of recording this. So very, very big opportunity there. Obviously, I don't want to harp on about AI too much. I did a whole episode about it and got some good feedback about that. Obviously, in the episode, I said I'm not the brightest spark when it comes to AI. Like the technology really goes over my head a fair bit, but the concept from a business perspective, I can understand and I can grasp, and I can kind of break it down in that sense and try to plant these ideas and these seeds in your mind so that you can hopefully understand it as well in a business context and use it to your advantage or disadvantage, whatever way you want to look at it. But what I want to talk about in today's episode is systems and processes versus frameworks, because it's something that gets brought up a lot. People are always asking like, well, what systems should I make? What processes can I make? And I see people trying to like copy my management matrix and they're trying to do this and that. And it's like, there's a lot of people that are they're getting shiny object syndrome, and they're at a stage in their business journey where all they should be focusing on is driving growth and revenue and sales and getting leads and just growing the base of the business. And they're trying to make too many systems and processes, and they're like, I just want to set myself up for success and I want to be able to scale well. And when I get to that stage, I want to be ready. And it's like, it's just not how it really plays out in the real world. And I kind of fell into that trap as well. I'm not going to sit here and grandstand to you like I had it all figured out from the beginning. I'm telling you this because I made these mistakes when I started. And what I really mean by that is when I was, very early on, maybe had a few staff and I was doing low-level 6 figures a year in the business, I was like just hell-bent on creating systems, because that was like the buzzword at the time, and it still is. It's very, very hot kind of topic, is like creating systems and automating things and delegating things, and you want to have your whole business mapped out. It can't be in your head because that's bad. And if you die, the business dies with you. Like all these things we get told, and they're true, but we'll kind of get into the timeline of things and the bigger picture of it all. So I kind of fell into that trap of that shiny object syndrome where I'm just trying to create all these different systems and like mapping out every process bit by bit. Like I had this whole training system. Training was like this LMS. It's a learning management software. And, when I started hiring staff, I was like, man, I want to have the best staff in the industry. I want them to be the best of the best. I want them to know everything inside out in the business. I want them to be able to clean, following our processes to a T. Like if we have one cleaner go in and another one go in, I want there to be like no difference. I don't want the customer to be able to tell. I just want it to be completely uniform across the board. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make the most ridiculously lengthy and detailed cleaning process for our employees, and that's going to be the answer. That's going to be the key to us being the best in the game and growing. And so I spent like literally hundreds of hours, I'm not even kidding, hundreds of hours over the span of a few months creating this ridiculously long and extensive training system with like onboarding and core values and this and that and about us and like open door policies and communication. Then like this whole cleaning module where I had a bathroom module, which was like an hour long and it was like 30 or 40 pages or something like that. I've got it all saved. I'll probably like pop it up on a website just so you can see how ridiculously long it was. But in the end, what I had was a huge steaming pile of crap. And I would try to send people through this stupid system that would take people literally 3 hours to learn how to clean a house. And, you know, people would actually do it. Like looking back in hindsight, man, those people were troopers. And I know they were doing it because I also had quizzes attached to every module to make sure they'd comprehended everything. And I was like, this is great. People are doing it. They're going to be the best cleaners. And then they'd rock up to the trial and it was pretty hit and miss. Like some people were good, some people were terrible. And it's like, did you even watch the videos? Did you even read the tens of thousands of words that I wrote down for you? And it's like, yeah, they were, but they're not remembering it. Like it's just information overload and they're getting paralysis by analysis. There's just too many things to think about. And it took me literally like 2 years to finally catch on to this and realize that like, oh, I probably need to condense this information down a bit. It's just too much for someone to take in all at once. And that was the beginning of my mindset shifting from detailed systems and processes into frameworks. And so what I mean by that is instead of a system or a SOP, which is like a step-by-step, you know, checklist or procedure for doing something, you want to try to package it up into an easy to follow framework. And the core idea of that is that a framework gives direction, whereas a process gives direct instructions. So there's a lot of repeatable processes and procedures that you'll want to have those step-by-step checklists for. But the majority of the work that we do in the business, whether it be cleaning or management, we kind of want to just have a framework that people can then work inside of, where the framework teaches them how to think rather than the processes which say, here's exactly what to do. Because the problem with that is when you rely too heavily on processes early on, you kind of remove that initiative. And you're going to create people who wait to be told what to do instead of figuring things out. And another downside of that is when you're early on in the business, like, can't we all agree, things are changing every single day. Like I created this whole cleaning training process inside Trainual, all with videos and everything. And within a couple of weeks, I'd changed like half the products in my cleaning kit because I was still new and figuring things out and changing things. And then all of a sudden, my entire like training system was outdated. So I had to go and re-record videos with the new products. And then all of a sudden, I had like a different change, like, oh, I've introduced like a color coding system with my microfiber cloth. And then I had to go and change it again and then again. And it just kept kind of going like that for a long period of time. And I spent, I don't even want to know how many hundreds of hours just wasted time changing the system over and over again. Whereas if I just created a simple framework for like how we work and how we operate and the kind of like overarching principles that we abide by, like that would have had such a bigger impact and effect on the team early on. And it would have had the added benefit of me not needing to waste so much time, because time, it's always precious, but it's especially precious when you're starting out, when you're in those infancy stages. Like every little thing you do early on, they have such a big impact and effect down the line. Like they can really compound into something massive later on. Like there's definitely a few key moments from early on in my business journey where if I just went down a different fork in the road, I could be like double where I am now, or like, I could be 10x where I am now if I just did a couple little things right. It's like, if you think about this analogy where you've got two countries and then an ocean in between them, if there's a ship leaving for port on one country or one continent and it wants to go to the other one, if you just send that ship in a straight line, it's going to end up, on the other continent, somewhere along the coastline. Now, if you want to send it directly to the port, if you make very small angular adjustments from the very start of its journey, you can direct it pretty much straight to the port without any variance or any margin of error. if you're even just a few degrees off when you send that ship on its way, it can end up hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers away from the destination. And so early on, decisions and things like this really, really matter. They may not seem like it, they may seem insignificant in the beginning, but later on they compound and they show over time their importance. And so it's really important that you're mindful of the time that you're spending and the energy and the money that you're investing into things early on. And obviously you want to learn and you want to try things, but I think if I can save you a bit of time, you'll not only thank yourself, but you'll thank me as well. So that's the core idea. The framework kind of gives you direction, or gives the people that you're creating it for the direction, whereas the process gives direct instructions. And now we can have SOPs, we can have processes, but for a lot of things in this business in particular, like you just can't have a step-by-step system, because when you rely, like I said, too heavily on these processes, you just remove that initiative. And early on, your business is changing constantly and you don't fully know the best way to do things yet. You need people to think and not just follow these SOPs and step-by-step checklists. So by doing that, you're going to avoid rewriting systems every month, which is the trap that I fell into, because a framework is going to adapt to a changing business, and a rigid system is just going to break with every single iteration along the way. And I know I'm yapping a bit about frameworks versus SOPs and systems and whatnot, but I should probably give you some examples to illustrate this point a bit better. So let's just take customer communication, for example. If we have a step-by-step process for approaching, conflict or communication, it could be something like, open the message, greet customer with template A, or acknowledge issue using template B, respond using template C, or whatever it may be, and then wait for reply, respond using template D, escalate if no resolution after step 6, and then use this template and that template. And it's it convolutes the process so much, and if the customer responds in a certain way that's outside of the very rigid system that you created and that checklist, then all of a sudden the person using it doesn't even know what to do, and then they're going to come back to you and ask what to actually do, and you've just killed any initiative that person may have had. So this is obviously important when you're trying to grow a management team, which hopefully at some point you'd like to do, because it's the best way to actually grow a business by having a team around you. And so if you had just flipped that and you created more of a framework approach, which is just communicate clearly, quickly, and professionally, always aim to leave the customer feeling informed and taken care of. And you can have an overarching set of guidelines or principles like respond fast, be friendly but direct, solve the problem, don't escalate things unnecessarily, and take ownership. And then you just kind of give that to people. And it's that takes 10 seconds to write down and come up with. And, now the person in charge of that system or in charge of that framework, they can handle different scenarios. They can adjust the tone depending on the client, and they can think on the fly, on their feet. And they've actually got initiative now, because as soon as someone's following a checklist, as soon as anything is outside of the scope of that checklist, or something doesn't match up with step 1 or step 2 or step 3, all of a sudden, their initiative just goes out the window. It's like their brain has just evaporated and just sunk into their stomach, and it's gone out the other end. It just doesn't exist anymore. And they're going to come to you oh, what do I do about this? And that's why cleaners are I love my cleaners and they're great, but as soon as there's something outside of the scope of the checklist, and if they've tried the entry instructions to get into a property or a site or a house or something, and it doesn't work, they don't even think, they just call the office, which is it's great. It's good that they have good communication and they contact the office, but sometimes you just want to be can't you just use a bit of initiative and think? So it's like that. It's pretty much that the frameworks incentivize initiative, whereas the systems and processes pretty much eliminate or delete the need for it in general. And then you're left with that kind of dynamic where you're micromanaging people. If it's cleaners, if they want to follow this stupidly long step-by-step comprehensive system like I created in the past, as soon as they're lost, they're just going to either come to you so that you have to micromanage them again and try to remind them of 100 different steps, or they're just going to try to wing it and probably stuff it up even more because they're overthinking it because it's such a stupidly long process. And if you just give them a framework instead, then they've got something that they can work within or work around, and they can use their own initiative and problem solving skills to actually deliver the result to the best of their ability. So pretty much just equipping them with the knowledge and the liberty to work within those parameters. So not giving them the freedom to do whatever they want, but giving them like a guiding set of principles and guidelines so that they can, they're not just, we don't expect them to just be able to pick up, a mop and bucket and do the best cleaning work ever without any sort of training. And we don't expect managers to be able to manage an entire business without guidance and communication and some sort of upper level management. But we give them those parameters, we put them in that box, and we let them kind of just work in it, and we let them work in this sandpit that they now have. And if there is anything outside the scope of whatever they need to do, like, they're not going to freak out and come to you, because they've got that framework that they can revert back to. Because Russell Brunson, he's a digital marketer that I follow, or I followed for a long time, and he always says, like, frameworks are your savior. Like, whenever you get lost, the framework is your savior. Always just go back to the framework. Even when it comes to cleaning, like, step-by-step processes it's just too hard. It's too much for people to remember, and there's too many variables that it's just impossible to do that for every job you do, every cleaner you have. And like, you can do it to a degree. Like, we have our 100-point cleaning checklist that we follow, and we've got that, but to go deeper than that and to like have a step-by-step process for how to clean every single point on that 100-point checklist, that would be the extreme. And that's like the extreme that some people go to. So rather than having that step-by-step approach where it's like, you want to wipe a kitchen bench from left to right and then spray this product and like wait 30 seconds and then wipe again or buff it with a dry cloth and then move to the sink and do that. And this is the process for cleaning the sink. Like, it's much easier just to give someone a practical set of guidelines, like focus on the visible impact first, or like the most obvious visual thing that when you walk into a room, prioritize like this room or that room, like prioritize bathrooms and then kitchen, and work down this hierarchy of rooms. Check your own work before leaving. Like, think to yourself, like, would I pay for this myself? Or like, am I working as if the customer is watching my every move? And this stuff is going to create like ownership. It's going to create pride and better decision making as well. And you obviously give people on the job training. You don't just throw a framework and some guidelines at someone and expect them to do great work. But it's much easier to give someone this framework to operate within, and then you can just kind of take them under your wing or under one of your trainer's wings, and then they can work together in a home. Because when we train our staff, we're not actually really training them. Like, we're letting them kind of watch the trainer for a bit, and we're giving them a set of instructions. And by then they already know the framework, because we have an onboarding process and they watch the videos, and it teaches them about some of these principles and guidelines that I've kind of referenced. And then they go into training, they're given a few simple instructions. The trainer will leave them on their own. And then when they finish that task, the trainer comes back, checks off on it, gives them any pointers, and then they move on to the next thing. So they're not really being trained one-on-one. They're just having that simple framework that they keep in mind. They get given some instructions. And so now it's like, okay, now I need to cross-reference these instructions and delineate, with the framework that I have. And so another example of this is when I was trying to hire for the position of our workforce coordinator or our scheduling manager. I tried so many different virtual assistants, and I tried just like normal employees here in Australia onshore. And it was really, really hard to train someone on how to do the schedule, because it's such like an arbitrary thing, and there's so many moving parts, and no two schedules are going to be the same. And it was just really hard to like create a training system where someone could follow it, and we could produce the same results on a regular basis. And I ended up just reverting back to a framework again. So instead of like trying to create these different steps and these checklists for people to go through, I just created these guidelines with like clustering jobs by area. Like, I created these area clusters, and I was like, make sure you assign jobs based on their area cluster. I was like, look at job history and assign the same cleaners to the same clients where possible. Avoid unnecessary gaps. Think ahead, not just day by day. Like, look at previous weeks and future weeks, and kind of just cross-reference and use other weeks as a guide and things like that. And then if you run into any problems, instead of coming to us with the problem, think of 3 possible solutions for that problem and then come to us with those solutions. We'll pick the best one, and if we don't like any of them, we'll just kind of tell you what we would have done, and you can learn from that. And that way, the person or the kind of whoever's taking on that role, they can solve the problems creatively and they can optimize over time based on those guidelines, rather than having just a really stupidly long and comprehensive system and checklist that is just too hard to follow because things are changing constantly, literally every minute of every day with our schedule. It's always changing. And they can always improve the system without being told how, because they've got that framework they can operate within, and they can add their own spin to it. They can add their own, kind of flavor to it. Like I've given Stacey, our operations manager, a few frameworks to operate within. Like I tried to give her step-by-step processes and SOPs to follow, and she just wasn't great at doing that. And there was like a little bit of, back and forth, and there was a bit of friction trying to get things to work, until I realized not everyone is going to operate the exact same way you do. Not everyone has your brain. They don't share the thoughts and the skills and the strengths and weaknesses you have. So if you try to extract all of this stuff from your head and put it into a step-by-step system or repeatable process, not everyone is going to be able to follow that to a T. Whereas if you can take those same concepts and those same processes and repackage them into more of a framework, then you can give that to someone, and then they can add their own spin on it, and they can operate within that or within those parameters, if that makes sense. So I've given Stacey frameworks now, and she kind of puts her own spin on it. She makes it work the way she wants it to, and now we've got a really good thing going there. So you can see at every stage of management and operations and cleaning and all this stuff, it's kind of illustrates how much easier it is to just give people the guide and let them kind of fill in the gaps, rather than trying to get them to connect all the dots themselves based on a list of criteria and really, really lengthy processes, which take so long to create and are so irrelevant and quickly made redundant by iterations and changes in the business. So that was another hard lesson that I had to learn. I wasted so much time and money trying to hire for that role. And it's not until I just simplified it, it's not until I just stepped back and looked at it from a bird's eye perspective, and I was like, what if I just cut out all of this and I just, strip it down to its bare bones essentials and turn that into kind of a set of principles that someone can follow and just use their own intuition and problem solving skills. And then we finally hired this guy, Josh, and he kind of he took those principles and he turned it into his own thing. He actually ended up giving us a lot of really good solutions. We had this problem where no one ever knew jobs that were a 2-person job. It was kind of it was a bit ambiguous, this thing. And so we just had this simple idea. It was what if we just add a double asterisk on the job titles where it's a 2-person job? And we're and then now we clearly know that that's a 2-person job because it's got, and that's another part of the framework now. It's if it's a 2-person job, it has 2 asterisks in the name. Really simple stuff, but it's really helped. Just things like that. And so, yeah, that was a hard lesson I had to learn, and it's kind of just solidified in my mind. I'm so done with trying to detail every single aspect of the business. I rather just create the frameworks, create the guidelines and the principles. It's kind of like core values. You create core values, and everything you do in the business should kind of be wrapped around them. How you operate, how you communicate, how you show up, how you deliver the service. They should all be wrapped around your core values. I believe it's the same sort of thing with frameworks and processes. They should kind of just act as the cornerstones or the pillars of the service, and everything else is tied around them. And obviously, you should still have processes, as I said. You want to have them for things that are repetitive and predictable and repeatable. So they are useful, but you want to make sure they're used right. So you should always have clear step-by-step SOPs and processes for things if it's something that's, like I said, repetitive or repeatable and predictable, things where there is a clear single best way or best practice, where mistakes are costly and you don't want to have someone just acting on intuition or on like gut feeling. And if you're like scaling consistently and not figuring things out with a certain area of the business, then that's when you can kind of create these checklists and SOPs. And that's for things like payroll, safety procedures like incident reporting and that kind of thing, and onboarding procedures and compliance tasks, like those kind of menial, repeatable tasks that you don't really need a bit of a human touch on. Like they can just have a robot follow those systems for all you care. And then anything that needs a bit of a personal touch or a bit of a human's flair on it, that's when you can have a framework that the user can actually operate within. And so you can do this at every layer of the business, whether it be on the ground with cleaning, whether it be your VAs if you have any, with your office staff or your team leaders or management. Even for myself, I have frameworks that I follow. I have literally a framework that I follow for the podcast. It's like, introducing the thing, talking about a problem. I usually have like examples of the problem and how you can work around that. And then I have a close. Like I try to have frameworks for everything. I have frameworks for the TikToks I make. It's just made my life a lot easier and a lot easier to kind of deconstruct and digest a lot of really big, hairy beasts that I've had to face in the business. So that's my take on systems and frameworks and all the likes. I know a lot of people are getting really caught up in this and they're getting shiny object syndrome, and it's like the woman in the red dress, like, if I can just create this next system, like everything will be great. And then I can finally scale the business. And it's like, oh, wait, hang on. I don't even have a steady flow of customers. So how about we focus on creating a steady lead generation system and client acquisition system first before we start thinking about like, oh, how's this hiring system going to look? And how's our back-end process going to look like? Think about what matters. Just take a bird's eye view, have a look at the business, look at where the gaps are, and then see if you can fill them with, just simple guidelines and principles and like values and things like that. And then for the things that are really easy and literally the same thing every time, like these proven and repeatable and predictable processes, that's where you can create your step-by-step checklist. But for the most part, like that's how you can kind of operate. It's a good kind of mantra to run your business by, and it has the massive added benefit of saving you a lot of time and a lot of hassle, because you don't need to waste unnecessary brain power and time and money and energy creating these really big systems and investing into all this software when sometimes the answer is actually right in front of you and it's a lot simpler than it may seem. And that's the key. Like if that's one of the big things that I've kind of learned over the years, it's just that, you need to simplify things as much as humanly possible. And yeah, that there's really no secret. Like the secret is there is no secret. You just want to make things simple. And ironically, that is the hardest thing in business. It's actually the hardest thing is to make things easy. So yeah, that's my take on frameworks and systems. Hope you got something out of this. This was another one of those episodes where I kind of just jump on and I just start rambling and I don't even really know what I'm going to talk about until I start opening my mouth and speaking. So I hope it made sense. I'm super, super busy at the moment. There's a lot going on in the business and it's great. We just picked up our biggest contract ever in the business. I don't know if I talked about this in this episode or not. But yeah, it's a really big contract. We're hiring a lot of new people. I was up at 6 a.m. this morning, went to a studio, filmed like 20 new onboarding videos. We're getting them professionally edited and put together. So like we've got this whole new onboarding system being created and our own new employee portal that I've built using Claude Code and like all these different things going on. It's really cool. And I'm hopefully going on the morning show on Channel 7 again in about 5 or 6 weeks. We're getting that booked in. So yeah, fingers crossed with that. That'll be great exposure again for the business. And yeah, just a lot of things going on. I don't really haven't really had much time or thought for the podcast much, but I wanted to just quickly jump on here, get an episode out there and have it still be jam-packed full of value. So I apologize if I was a bit scatterbrained in this episode or some things were a bit rushed, but that's how I roll. If you've been listening for a long time, that's what I'm like. And hopefully you're on board with that. You're either going to love me or hate me. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening to another episode. I'm speaking way too fast. Let me slow myself down. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Self-Made. I'm going to get back to doing my Claude Code stuff and If you want to keep up to date with what I'm doing here and learn more about this stuff, follow me on Instagram, Jason Cleans, because I talk about this pretty much every day at the moment. And I'm just an absolute nerd and obsessed with this. So I'm going to get back to it. It's currently 9:30 p.m. I have been working on this since probably 9 a.m. this morning. And like, I can't even sleep at night at the moment. All I dream about is Claude Code and these AI agents and what I'm going to build next. And like, I am the human embodiment and the epitome of shiny object syndrome at the moment. But luckily for me, I've got a team and the business kind of runs without me. So I can be the mad scientist with this stuff at the moment and just waste all my time and energy on it. So that's great. But yeah, thank you for listening to another episode of Self-Made. Hope to catch you again in the next one.